All right, I think we are live. Let's see. Cool. All right, I think we're live. So, firstly, wanted to welcome Joseph back. Wasn't sure if we're gonna
Hey
make
there,
it happen.
folks.
Joseph, you can hear me? All good? All right, we'll give Joseph a second there. But hopefully
Oh,
everybody
no,
else.
no, I'm good.
Oh, you're
Good to
good.
go.
Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, so we'll just jump right into it. Thanks everyone who's watching, everybody who's going to watch later. So this is episode 2 of building Web3 anything in Bubble. So the whole purpose of this series, as we kicked it off, coming out of brainstorms between Joseph and myself, and really by necessity, just seeing a lot of people have an interest in building something around Web3, but not necessarily knowing how to do it and whether they can do it. And so we thought it'd be just really helpful for the community to start building in real time, building live and just showing people what's possible. So in today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do basically start from the basics. So we're going to launch a clean app, so literally just a fresh app. This will be based off of the latest V5 of the one.MARKET template, which is effectively like an all-in-one full-featured marketplace, just like off the shelf. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to do a little bit of a speed run. It might take a little bit longer because I'm going to try to explain some of the key things along the way. But if you looked at each of the steps that we're going to do, you could easily set up your completely new marketplace in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And the key thing here is the UX of what we're going to be launching, I think, is like leading edge, meaning it is, I like to call it low-key Web3. And when I think of low-key Web3, there's it's like a trifecta, right? It's one, being able to log in, having anybody be able to log in with just their social login and their email. So super easy, right? Seamless for someone who's just used to browsing the web. Second is being able to deploy with a Gasless kind of framework, right? So somebody who's just launching the app for the first time, I actually set up the default to have a Gasless set up already. So for instance, we're going to try to deploy a marketplace contract and just do it from scratch with a brand new account, brand new wallet with zero balance, just to get things up and running. And then thirdly, credit card checkout. So again, this is a big one, right? We're going to look at how it actually works. So we're going to do, a quick credit card checkout, demo. But then we'll talk a little bit about how it's set up. We use Wort for that one. And I think between the three of those, you get those up and running. Again, you can get it up and running in 10, 15 minutes. And that's like the core for pretty much any other Web3 app that is going to be, usable by the mainstream, right? By like non-Web3 users. So what we're going to do, just to kind of kick things off, and also if you have questions along the way, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to just start by launching a clean version of the template.
Right, and what we're going to do is a login and a payment. And all the user will see will be something very simple, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're going to do a little bit of the setup. So literally, like, this is as if you just got this template, from the Bubble Marketplace. You're looking to set up your own marketplace for the first time. So we're going to walk through some of those steps. And then when we get it up and running again, like maybe 10, 15 minutes, we're going to look at it from the other side, somebody kind of coming in, logging into your app that's now live and looking to purchase something with their credit card. So again, super seamless. And I think this is a big differentiator, right? Because even if you look at a lot of the Web3 apps out there that are from like the OGs, right? We'll even see this as we're going to like sign up for API keys and stuff like that. A lot of the Web3 apps, the big Web3 apps out there are still kind of like, focused on a Web3 oriented user experience. So like wallet first, MetaMask first, things like that, which is great. I mean, it's where we came from. But if we really want to get to the next level and have this be accessible to the average user, again, I think we really need to rethink like what we're prioritizing in terms of our user experience, and we'll see that, right? So, and we'll see how to do that. So first thing we did here, we're going to launch this brand new template. There's a couple things that Bubble provides. We're not going to kind of focus on that so much, but there's some cool things like out of the box that Bubble provides, like for instance, setting some basic style parameters up, your fonts, your colors, and all these things can be set up afterwards as well. And these, by the way, are pretty new. They actually are things that Bubble added in like the last maybe 6 months to a year or so. So even Bubble's constantly evolving. But a lot of this stuff is already baked into our template. So we're just going to kind of jump in. So first things first, when we jump in, you're going to see the landing page. If you're looking at Bubble for the first time, might be a little bit overwhelming, but we'll do a quick like Bubble 101. So what we're looking at here is the visual editor, and you can tell which tab you're looking at in Bubble by looking on the left-hand side. So you got, the design tab, which is what we're looking at. That's where all the widgets go, and ultimately where you go to design your page. It's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a little bit looking at deciphering something, like looking at the Matrix or something for the first time. You see a lot of like, random text, it looks like, and things like that. But as you kind of get used to it, eventually I think there's no better way to code, because everything that you're trying to put on the page is like right there in front of you. And if you're trying to link things up and make like a button do certain things, again, it's all like really, really accessible, usually like 1 or 2 clicks away. And just to kind of finish out, just because, we may have people joining who haven't seen Bubble before, the core tabs here, the key tabs, one is design, which we just looked at. Second is workflow, which is, I kind of think of it as like adult Scratch, which is, if you've ever seen Scratch, it's like the kids programming language, and it's like Legos for logic, right? Just literally putting things together block by block. Each of these things is a trigger. Once the trigger is, actions, then there are certain steps you can take afterwards, like I want to navigate. I want to just click a button and go to a certain page. Super easy to do. Thirdly is the data framework. So pretty much everything you create, Bubble calls it a thing. In traditional code, we call it an object, but I think a thing makes a lot of sense. You can add things like pretty much on the fly. You can add different parameters to those things. You can start pointing, things to each other. Like for instance, I have an NFT object, obviously, because we have a NFT marketplace, and I want to point it to a collection. So here it is pointing to another thing, right? And so pretty soon, as you're starting to build out your data framework, you can do some really cool things. So the next thing we're going to do, actually, we're going to come back to plugins, because that's going to be pretty key for us setting things up. First time you log in, or open the application, you might get a little alert, especially if it's more of a complex template like we have. And there's 2 things you can do. One, you can kind of sign up to Bubble's starter plan, because their free plan, it basically has some limitations around the numbers of rows of data and things like that. But the other thing you can do is actually invite one to all. So you can invite this address, hello@one-to-all.io. And what that'll do, we have an agency account. So what we can do is we can come in and we can actually just switch your app to agency, which basically gives you it's kind of like a cheat code. Like basically you can develop as long as you want for free. Also use all the plugins available, any plugin available as you're building. It's like the ultimate development, kind of setup, right? So what we're actually going to do is switch directly to that. So we're going to switch to the agency plan. And there we go. So alert went away. Again, similarly, if we just upgraded to the lowest tier plan for Bubble, same thing. We'd be able to get ready and go. Now we're going to get rolling. So let's look at the plugins. And again, a pretty key tab for Bubble. One of the great things about Bubble, it has a super huge ecosystem, lots of people building, lots of people making really great plugins. Obviously, you got to put a plug in for NovaBlock and the plugins that actually we kind of jointly created in a lot of cases. just as I've been building Web3 apps and NovaBlock has been kind of innovating on the plugin side, now we're kind of bringing all these things together. So the key plugins for building a low-key Web3 app are as follows. So firstly, we got Web3 Auth, which is what we're going to use for our connectivity, our email login, our social login, and we're going to walk through real quick how to set that up for the first time. Secondly, we got Thirdweb, which is our entire NFT infrastructure. So it is what's going to let us deploy contracts, mint NFTs, and also list things for sale using their marketplace contract, which is a whole other, it's next level, because it's effectively your way to deploy and own your entire own marketplace contract and have it basically run entirely on chain. So
but that's the key thing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing here is really happening in Bubble, but you're using Bubble as a remote control to do things on chain, actually, and it's the real chain at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is all mainstream stuff as far as what's on chain. So again, you can use this app. You can point it to Ethereum mainnet, point it to Polygon. Some people use the Binance Smart Chain. So it's all kind of blue chip stuff. But you're exactly right, Joseph. So what we're doing here is we're using plugin to interact with things on chain. And what helps us a lot, actually, a big difference between, doing this 2 years ago versus doing this now. Again, the ecosystem is just so much more mature. Something like Thirdweb just maybe existed 2 years ago, but in a very primitive form. And now it's just I think they have hundreds of thousands of different apps being launched every couple months or something. It's pretty wild. They're really vetted and a pretty key piece of the entire Web3 community now. But there's a lot of that, right? So again, Web3 Auth, Web3 storage, which we'll get into as well. That's for uploading things to IPFS. So each of these services now is a pretty critical component, and really makes the whole process of building a Web3 app and getting up and running so much easier. So the last thing we're going to do before we kind of jump into just actually setting this thing up is just take a quick look, across different plugins. And again, there's a lot of different ones here. A lot of them are for UX and different little bells and whistles. But again, critical ones are the ones we walk through. So Web3 Auth, Thirdweb, Web3 storage, Wirt, which we'll get into, and we'll come back to that one. And Web3 MetaMask, which is the OG plugin. That's the one that lets us do a lot of the most basic, Web3 things that we need to do. So, all right, let's jump in. So if we had a little imaginary timer here, we kind of get that started. What we're going to do is we're going to start actually just signing up for a bunch of these services. So again, if I'm launching this for the first time, I want to have my own keys, right? So Web3 Auth is one we want to sign up in. I'm going to start actually just
because these are third-party services, and you simply need access to use them also in Bubble.
Exactly. And I've over the course of the past 2 years, as I've been building, that's one of the main things that I've been focused on. Is just always keeping a lookout for what is the best in class services to do certain things. And when I think of best in class, it's a combination of one, does it work well? But two, for someone who's getting up and running and trying to bootstrap something, do they have for instance, a free tier that's generous and would work, would let me actually build what I want in my head, and even launch live and get some momentum, without having to have a huge upfront cost, right? So all those things are taken into consideration. So for instance, Web3 Auth, basically free. I mean, I think it's something if you get up to 10,000 unique users a month or something like that. Oh, here it is. Actually, 1,000 unique users a month. They start having some paid tiers. But again, if you're getting up and running, that's more than enough. Thirdweb is actually, hopefully, actually a good problem to have if you start getting above 1,000. Thirdweb is actually completely free. So that one's pretty crazy. I mean, the amount of what they offer, and Web3 storage, even in comparison to things like Pinata, there's a couple of IPFS services. Again, this is the one that I think is best, not only because their API is really good, but again, they have a really generous free tier, 5 gigabytes, I think, for a free account.
And you're only using like 1 meg at a time, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, in most cases, if you're uploading images and things like that, a couple megabytes here and there, 5 gigabytes actually lasts a good while. But I've had instances where I had certain applications, certain projects that were focused on video. And even then, videos 50 to 100 megabytes, like you're still talking, you could put
50 videos. Yeah.
50, 25, 50 videos on there. So yeah, we're just going to actually just get going here. So first time you log into Web3 Auth, the dashboard, it's going to ask you for an email. They actually eat their own dog food. So anything that's associated with them, they basically use the same login workflow that you would actually now have for your app. So punch in my email basically works like a magic link, which people are pretty comfortable with these days. So if I go back to my test account, we'll see that pop up pretty soon. And sometimes it's in the spam. There we go. So let's see here. Let me do a quick refresh here. So once we get that magic link set up, I've got to tell my Gmail to play nice with this Web3 Auth email. There we go. Okay, so yeah, once you click in, it'll launch a little browser, do its authentication. One of the nice things here is you don't actually need to be in the same browser. I could have opened that up on my my mobile phone or whatnot. It would have worked exactly the same way. But once I come back to the app, I just want to make sure. Sometimes it'll ask you to set up multi-factor authentication too, which is nice. Again, really good option to have. We'll see if it does. In this case, it's just letting me go through. But yeah, in terms of a login experience, right, you're pretty much like at par with the best Web 2 experiences out there, which I think is what we as like a community in Web 3 and for folks building should be comparing ourselves to, right? So I'm going to set up a quick profile, and there I go. I'm into the dashboard. I can literally start spinning up different projects. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. What we're going to use is plug and play. So plug and play is basically the self-contained little pop-up, right? It has kind of all the bits and bobs in there, all the logic baked in there. So we're going to create a new project. The way Web3 Auth works is they ask you to always set up a testnet project first. So that's what we're going to do. So we had a new project. There we go. We got our client ID. And what we're actually going to do too is we're going to start to preview our app. So as we're building and we're actually setting up things, we'll be able to see what's going on in the app in real time. And what we're going to do here, it's going to ask for a password the first time that we log in. And that's just a function of being on the agency account. So if we go back to the Bubble editor, go to the general tab, settings, and then general, you'll see the default username and password is not the most creative thing. But that's okay. We could go in there and change it if we wanted. In this case, we're going to be okay with that basic login. Again, we haven't set the kind of the key services up, but this app is live. I mean, this app is up and running. We literally pushed 4 buttons between like create app, punching in the name of the app, and then basically we're up and running. And so the really cool thing about Bubble and building a Bubble as well is just the instant feedback, right? Like as I'm making changes, as I'm kind of updating things, and we'll see this in real time, the page that you're looking at to preview, it'll just tell you, hey, there's an update, and all we need to do is refresh. like when we refresh, actually what's happening, we're getting the brand new app every single time. And for me, that just, I don't know, that just blows my mind still every time I see that happening. So the other key reason that we're going to be looking at this is we do want to grab the domain here. Web3 auth, Thirdweb, they actually ask you to whitelist your domain. So we're going to just start getting in the habit of doing that. So we just want to grab that like base URL and start to whitelist it. The next thing we're actually going to want to do for Web3 auth is create our production key, and we're going to do that on one of the environments here called Cyan. So Web3 auth is actually going through its own like infrastructure improvement. So they're launching their latest and greatest environment, which they call Sapphire. It's not quite ready yet. So what we've been doing is kind of pointing at this the next most recent environment, which is Cyan. So we're going to launch that. But I think the next couple weeks, or maybe the next month or two, they're going to go live with their latest and greatest again. They're calling it Sapphire, and that'll make available again their version of DevNets and mainnets on Sapphire. But for now, we're going to launch this on Cyan. What Web3 Auth asks you is to, if you're going to launch something on mainnet, to first have a project on testnet with the same project name. So you'll see here I use the same project name. That's intentional. I think that's a good precaution. They just want to make sure you can walk before you run type of thing. So we just launched a brand new client ID. Now this is accessible on the mainnet environment, the Cyan mainnet environments in Web3 Auth. And again, we want to whitelist our URL. We'll do a little bit of troubleshooting if we run into it on the app side, but that's pretty much it. Let's grab this client ID. Let's go back to the application and the plugin tab, and we're just going to start punching in things. So again, hopefully it's not lost on folks that like a lot of the setup time is actually not in the app itself. it's actually just kind of going and getting set up with some of these outside services. And the app itself is pretty much, and the plugins themselves are pretty much set up and ready to go in the app. So that's Web3 Auth. We got that set up. The next thing we want to do is actually get, similarly, a key from Thirdweb so we can access their infrastructure. And for that, coming back to the prior comment on Web3 versus low-key Web3, right? So, Thirdweb, again, critical part of the infrastructure, but still pretty focused on just a traditional Web3 user experience, right? So it's like MetaMask first. And I think where we ultimately want to go, and actually Thirdweb, I know they acquired Paper, for instance, and they have their own functionality on walletless login and things like that. So they're definitely heading the right direction. But what'd be really nice, I think, in this case, is also being able to log in, let's say, with Web3 Auth, for instance, into Thirdweb and to be able to access my wallets that way. But as it stands, still really clean setup. We'll come back to the dashboard maybe later if we have some time. But Thirdweb has an amazing dashboard in terms of contracts, right? Like you can literally see everything you've deployed that's based on a Thirdweb standard contract, and you can double click into it, see all the things, right? It's just a really nice and clean like contract management dashboard, which complements any app you're building like really well. Otherwise, you'd basically have to be looking at things like in the blockchain explorer, right? Which is for those who don't know, like Etherscan, Polygon Scan, and things like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it looks like you're signing up to these third-party services, doing it while presenting. It's going really quick, and it seems like the whole setup, which is maybe 10-15 minutes, but it's done, and it's for a financial service.
Yep.
That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, I think, the power of Web3 and what we're doing is in the old days, right? You'd be trying to build some of this stuff and you'd have to build the infrastructure for it too. So, if you're building something that's a financial services oriented or has a marketplace function even, you end up spending so much time and effort just making sure that back end is secure, right? So asset purchases, asset transfers, all that stuff. And what we have now is like the ability to basically, I mean, it's sometimes it's kind of easy to take it for granted almost, but now we're literally launching these things and they're as secure as they can be, at least as from a coding and an encryption perspective. They're as secure as they can be, and they're just able to be set up in, like you said, Joseph, like minutes, right? So it's crazy. I mean, especially coming from my past lives where I built marketplaces for financial services and things like that. I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount. I mean, I guess it's kind of you can kind of.
I believe it. But I believe it.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort that goes into like building some of the things now that we can just on chain spin up like instantly.
And much more securely. Say someone is buying and selling on chain, even from a bubble website. Yeah. That's a lot more credible than a handmade marketplace that's not on chain.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
Because you don't know where that PayPal sort of looking link goes to.
Yep.
Whereas you can see that contract on the blockchain right there if you have any doubt.
Yep. Totally. And I think we touched on this in the last episode, right, where we're talking about transparency. In that case, we were looking at your concept of the fundraising mechanism. And I think that's a huge plus, right, for people. I mean, most of the times people will come in and they're looking at the functionality first. Like, is this app cool? Is it doing something that I find interesting or that I need it to do? But I think there's definitely a step after that where then people are like, okay, this is cool. This is doing something that I need to do. But how is it doing it? And is it secure? And do I feel comfortable with like using this long term? The real, like one of the big unlocks, I think, for Web3 is now as people dig into that, they can realize like, oh man, like I can actually see exactly what this thing is doing and I can see it on chain and it's secure. And I think that's a huge benefit for the ecosystem, but I think that's a huge benefit just for users generally, right?
Right. And small businesses, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. So what we are going to do here is we're going to try to log in for the first time. So behind the scenes, all that setup we just did in terms of like punching in, punching in the client IDs and all that stuff, that's what's letting us get to this step, which is logging in for the first time. So you can check this out. We actually just have the same experience, like a magic link experience. Hopefully Gmail will, okay, so Gmail is playing nicely with that email, although it does kind of pop that up still. So we're going to approve that and come back to the app, and we'll just keep an eye out. Sometimes, again, it asks for multi-factor. So we'll let it kind of do its thing for a bit. But yeah, once it logs in, so actually it went through this time. And behind the scenes, we're getting a new wallet account generated. The app is recognizing I'm a new user to the app. So this is optional. This is part of the UX that you're building into Bubble. But, I can punch in my name.
But you're going to have to go into the back-end workflows and show me what's going on.
Yeah. So
it just looks like magic to me right now.
Well, that's the other great thing, right? And that's why I actually think it's the combination of Web3 and Bubble is so powerful, because for the same reasons that you made the great point, Web3 is awesome because of its transparency, because you can see exactly what's happening. There's no like black box effect, right? I believe truly
we're at the half-hour mark.
Yeah.
This all looks like it worked. And now there's a new wallet that you kind of store and manage in Bubble for your user. Is that right?
That is exactly right. You see here, this is the real deal wallet we just spun up. I could look at this on Polygon
Oh,
scan
and there's
lists.
the amount in the wallet top right and everything. Okay.
Yep, yep. And so
But
what
you
we're
have
gonna
to show me the magic. You have to actually show me
and
the.
yeah, exactly. So all
That's
of
it
this,
there. Yeah.
it's there.
OX.
It's there.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do actually, we're gonna take this account that we just created, and again, this is like where we start to see the really cool complementary functionalities that Bubble plus Web3 can offer, right? So I'm gonna go back to my app. I'm just gonna permission my user. So again, this is on the Bubble side, right? I see this brand new user. There he or she is. I'm gonna open this up, and I want to make this user an admin, right? And so only I, as the editor of this Bubble app, have the ability to do this. So obviously, you don't want to let people kind of willy-nilly going in and managing the database. But I just want to show how easy it is to actually go in and, let's say, in this case, specifically permission a particular user. I flip back to the app. I didn't even need to refresh. And the app knows this user is now an admin. And so I have this button that actually wasn't there previously, which is the ability to go into the admin settings. Right. So again, here's that
And that's built into the template. This admin.
That is built into the template. But again, anything in the template, it's open source. You can go and look at it, and I'm happy to kind of step in and backtrack, and we'll kind of dive in and double click into each and any one of these things. But it's all there. So like again, same way that Web3 is transparent on chain, Bubble's transparent because the code is just like human readable, and it's just there, right? So this is
by the way, link in the description, because you can literally click and follow along on your own time.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if you actually punch this in, clean 831 at bubbleapps.io, this is important, the version/test. So the way Bubble differentiates between a development environment and the live environment is if I remove that and went to that link, that would be the live app. It's not actually deployed yet. So
all this information that we're seeing right now on the screen, that's live information from chain.
Yeah. So a lot of this is set up. We're actually going to deploy one more thing on chain, which is going to be our it's a pretty critical piece. It's our marketplace contract. But you'll notice here.
Wait. Are we almost done?
We are actually almost done. So we're actually going to do one more thing. I just noticed that I have.
I'm booked for an hour, okay, and
I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to give full value for that full hour. Try to match expectations. But what we're gonna do here, actually, I'm gonna grab one link. One URL, which we're going to use for our Gasless functionality. And what we can do while that's loading up, if we look at the app, it has some helpful links actually just in the description. So we're going to just click this one. We're going to look at it. We're not going to do a deep dive on this just yet. I mean, maybe if we have time, we'll double back on it. But I do want to talk through it because this was a huge pain point that we tried to solve over the course of the past year or two. Again, big props to Thirdweb, also Open Zeppelin. For those who don't know Open Zeppelin's like the OG like smart contracts resource. They're the ones that built a lot of the most commonly used smart contract standards like 721, 1155, all that good stuff. And now they're also starting to build some services, right, for the community, and one of which is the ability to create something called a relayer. So again, not to get too much into it, but the way I think about a relayer is like an automatic piggy bank. So basically what it is it's an automatic piggy bank which you can call on to do things like pay for gas fees. Like if we wanted to, what we're going to do in a second, spin up a new contract, a marketplace contract with a brand new wallet, which we saw had a zero balance because it's absolutely brand new, didn't exist 10 minutes ago. And what we want to do is use that wallet to deploy a contract, but we don't necessarily want to fiddle around with and get currency and things like that. We could, but this would be a much faster way to get things set up.
And if folks don't know, gas has been a pain point for years, probably since inception, and it just makes it tougher for transactions to go through because you have to calculate it and you shouldn't make mistakes, and mistakes are easy to make. And if that's not a problem anymore, the price you see is the price you pay, and everybody loves that.
Yep. And again, yeah, all those things that you said, and additionally, it's for again new users, right? So like I think one of the things we're all trying to do is bring people into the fold, right? Introduce them to all the cool things that you can do in Web3. I would actually say also in no code, but I think one of the key blockers for that is the onboarding experience, right? It's like the combination
Absolutely.
of coming to an app and being like, what's MetaMask? And then, sometimes actually just being barraged with the sheer number of different wallets. Like even my eyes were like, oh my God, if I look at Wallet Connect and I like look at all the options of wallets, I'm like, if I were a new user, I've been doing this for 2 years and I'm still like, oh my God, like which one of these do I use, right? So I think that whole kind of experience, and then on top of that, if you do manage to get yourself into the app and figure all those things out, then you can't actually do anything, material first, because you got to get some currency, you got to be able to pay gas fees and all that stuff. So all of these things it's like been whack-a-mole, right? It's like, all right, you knock that one out. What's the next pain point? What's the next pain point? What's the next pain point? And we're finally at the point where I don't know. I think we're kind of at that inflection point. So what we're going to do here is we're going to deploy this marketplace contract. Knock on wood. But
is that the contract right there?
So this is not. So this will be filled in. So the contract right now is blank, and that's intentional because I think it's important for every marketplace app or any app that's going to have marketplace functionalities to vertically integrate. So I could, for instance, supply my contract address. Anybody could use it. So contract address is, a marketplace contract is free.
Then it'd be your marketplace.
Exactly. So now,
got it.
And we'll see this in a second, and I'll actually show the step-by-step so people can start to see some of the logic behind it. But it's going to show pop-up, and it's going to give you a little bit of a reminder, which says, okay, you want to launch this marketplace. By the way, one of the things that you can implement in the marketplace is the concept of a platform fee. Is this how you want it set up? So I'm going to look at this and be like, oh, actually, so let's say there's a default address here. I want that to be sent to me, right? So my new address, so I can copy that over. Maybe I don't want it to be, 10%. Maybe I'm looking at like 2% as a marketplace fee. I'm just going to update those values. Let's just make sure actually they update it. But again, this is something that a year ago people didn't have much control or options to update, and now you have full control over the the whole setup, right? Like how you actually want the contract to run, and you can come back and edit it too. So I think maybe we're going to just go ahead and, okay, there we go. So there we go. Yeah,
that's there. So yeah. That's a collection of marketplace contracts on chain that you then call to facilitate all that using Bubble's interface.
Exactly. Yep. So right here.
Okay. So like, say someone has a payment link.
Yep.
That payment link in the hierarchy is going to be like, say, a level down on this.
Yes. Right. So the payment link, and it's kind of layers to it, right? Like a layer cake here. So on the base level now, we have a contract which is going to do things on chain, like it knows what a listing is, right? I want to sell this NFT for this price. It knows what a bid is if we want to run it as an auction. And it'll do each of those things, again, automatically on chain based on its functionality. The second thing that we then layer on top of that is some of these payment services like Work, for instance, right? Where it's going to accept a credit card. In the background, what it's doing is actually interacting directly with this marketplace contract.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So basically, again, I mean, like means to an end, right? Ultimately, what we want to do is have all that stuff like abstracted to the point where, it's not visible to the user. and we might actually have to do a quick refresh here. But that's, yeah, behind the scenes, there's a lot going on for any of this stuff. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is make the end user experience as seamless as possible. So we're going to take another quick look here. Let's make sure our address is okay. And if we have to do, we might, do a little live troubleshooting if we have to. But most of the times it's due to, like, for instance, some of the whitelisting, for instance. So we'll kind of take a look. Actually, you know what? I know why. We have to, let's double check here our Thirdweb plugin. I think that is set up. Take it off. Quick double check here. Come back to the API keys. And again, Thirdweb, their dashboard is really really clean, really helpful. So one of the things I'm going to do here, just to double check, is put another variation of the domain, just to make sure we're set up on that front.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes,
I mean, it's all for security at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so, like, for instance, the Thirdweb API key, you could leave it open, and it's not like there's a cost attributed to it. So, like, the downside isn't huge. But at the same time, I think what's becoming increasingly, like, top of mind for folks is having security around their specific applications for things like phishing attempts and people trying to, just kind of like
steal money. It's called
steal money. Yeah, exactly.
Let me help you out there.
Fool folks, right? And so let's take a quick look here again. So that is becoming increasingly important, right? So.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a day on earth where people haven't absolutely hated scammers.
Yeah. I mean, tale as old as time, right?
What I like about this is once I set it up and kind of have my plugins work together much like this, probably using the template as inspiration.
Yep.
That payment link that's produced is that simple. Like, so far, we're at 45 minutes, put it that way.
Oh, okay.
That was not as quick. Like, that was not as slow as Stripe. Like, it took me days for Stripe.
Yep.
And I'm still working on my payment links, by the way.
Totally.
I'm not saying this is going to replace Stripe. I'm just saying, like, as an alternative for a builder, it's great because it works and it also works fast.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you can give an alternative to your folks, like your users. So
absolutely. So I think the traditional way of building software, there's always going to be a place for that and a need for that. And I think, like,
definitely
let our hardcore developers focus, like you focus on AI, for instance, right? So, I mean, man, again, props to, like, folks like you and folks in that community who are just, like, pushing the frontiers. There's always going to be, especially now, there's going to be ample opportunity for our best developers to be focusing on, like, the hardest challenges. I think what's really cool, though, is, like, I don't know, if you just think about
like building a login for your website, and you have to spend 2 weeks doing that if you don't have help. You know?
Totally.
And this takes even longer, by the way. And now it's, I would say, just as painless.
Yep. And yeah, exactly. I think the real opportunity for people to build is like the next, you know, 100,000 million people that can build apps, right? Who again didn't come from that background. They don't have a coding degree, anything like that, but they just have a really cool idea and they just want to make it, make it come to life. Um, so actually, as we're talking here, one of the things I'm going to do is actually set up our Web3 storage account too. And what Web3 storage is again a free service for pinning things to IPFS. So IPFS as a protocol is called Interplanetary File System. It's also free to use. Some services basically help you just kind of manage some of the things that you've uploaded. And for those who maybe have not heard of that term before, IPFS, what it is it's a peer-to-peer file storage system, right? And it is intended to be like permanence. Anything you upload is meant to like persist, again, at no cost to the user who's uploading. And so again, one of these things in the ecosystem that's evolved that now plays a critical part in what Web3 is. And again, able to set up like super simply. I don't need to be like going into any like coding terminals or launching GitHub or doing, all that stuff. I'm basically just signing up for service like I would any other, kind of typical service these days, SaaS service or whatnot, asking for a key, getting that set up. And I think one of the things that we're going to double check here in a second is coming back to, and this actually would be a good segue just to look at some of the plugins and how they're set up. In the one-to-all template, a lot of the most critical plugins are actually located in this header element. So the header is not just for show. It actually serves a functional purpose too, housing a lot of these connectivity plugins. And one of the things we're going to take a look at specifically is how the Thirdweb element is set up. So that looks like it's set up pretty well. Web3 auth, yep, it's pointing at cyan. So we're going to give this another shot. In the interest of time, if we can also just plug in a marketplace contract, so we'll kind of keep that as a plan B. But what we'll do is we'll kind of punch this in one more time. I think what it was doing sometimes, Thirdweb actually also uses IPFS in the background, and sometimes they have a little hiccup in terms of like their backend when they're trying to access it and upload certain things. But let's give it another shot here. And
I just realized what you mean. Okay, yeah. Sure.
The nice thing too about Thirdweb, stuff happens, right? When you build, sometimes things break, sometimes things don't work like you expect them to. What really helps
when you say sometimes, for me, it's all the time.
Exactly. So,
this is the least painful thing I've ever seen for financial ever.
Yeah. It's
I mean, this is fluid.
It's the nature of building
and
stuff.
Anyone who says this is not fluid hasn't lived through a live build. This is so easy. Even debugging, right away that you need the three interacting correctly and where the problem is, kind of. So
yeah. I mean, like part of coding, it's not just the actual building of the stuff, it's the fixing in some cases, right? I mean, especially, there you go, done. So I guess this is like
Mr. Show-Off over here. Do not expect this on your first run.
Yeah.
Like, this is not normal. So
this is
what's normal is you spend a day.
Right. So
you can expect that, which is fine.
We're for realism's sake, we are introducing some of these into our script of like, hey, let's have a hiccup here, and then
exactly.
And then we'll work through
this
it.
This is all pre-planned.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Still keeping the script, good. But the cool thing too here. Let's just come back to the dashboard, right? And then what we'll do as we're coming up on the hour is we're going to come back to the app and actually
But we're coming up on the hour, having signed up from scratch.
Yep.
On all these services, produced a contract, then used it to produce a payment link. That's wild.
Yep.
1 hour live plus a bug.
In real time, here is for one, this is an intro into the Thirdweb dashboard, which is super cool. It's like just really nice. But secondly, we can view our marketplace, interact with it. We'll see listings on here in real time. This is reflecting what's on chain, so we don't have a listing just yet, but we will hopefully soon. But again, all these things kind of working in concert, right? Now that we have this marketplace contract up and running, we have our Gasless relayer up and running. We're gonna, again, you take a look at the balance, zero balance, right? This is a brand new wallet. It shouldn't actually be able to do these things in the old days, right? Like you have a zero balance, you're blocked. Like you can't actually do things with a zero balance. But again, because we have this like Gasless framework that Thirdweb and others have coordinated on and setting up, again, huge pain point that we were able to solve for. So,
like normally, say 3 years ago, you set yourself up. Okay, you have zero balance. Good luck finding some random token for sale somewhere, and then you have to credit it, have multiple wallets, hot and cold storage, and now all you have is credit on your wallet. You have no users, no way to manage any of it, and for sure you don't have a marketplace. So keep on trucking. And now it seems that within an hour, you build an ecosystem and use it. Also, it's operational.
And we're not going to stop there. What we're going to do is we're going to deploy a collection contract. So,
is this an NFT of this episode?
Yeah. So
it is.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
This is a legit NFT, though. You laugh.
Yeah, we're going to be creating an NFT. This is going to be on Mumbai. So, but for our purposes, let's call it the official one. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a NFT contract. Again, just kind of rewinding the tape for folks who may be new to all this. What an NFT is a token. It's a thing generated by a smart contract, right? And to do that, to create an NFT, you first need to deploy the smart contract. You need to kind of set up something on chain which kind of knows certain actions to take. Like, for instance, hey, contract, can you mint this NFT with this image and this metadata, right? And so that's what we just did. This contract now, again, brand new contract, is on chain. We're going to mint our NFT to this contract. And let's try to actually mint it. The other nice thing here is we got some exchange rate stuff built into here. Again, all open source. You can kind of see how that's set up in the background. But we're going to list these for sale at $1.20 and start the process. And
do I have to buy one, kind of, because I'm on the stream?
Well, we can.
I'm a captured audience.
Yeah, exactly. We can we can go to. I'll demo it. And so at least what we'll see is the credit card checkout from a different view. I'll flip over to a different user, and then we'll see if we pull the trigger on it. Because one thing we'll touch on when we get to the credit card checkout for testing purposes. Worked sometimes. This is the nature of these things. Sometimes they have a piggy bank as well, because for test purposes, they're actually literally paying for these things on chain. So they have kind of a reserve of test currency. In their little setup.
I see what you mean, so that you don't actually have to pay $1.20 every time you test your NFT.
Yeah. So, but what
happens? That goes quick.
What happens sometimes is their piggy bank runs low. So like we might have a situation where the payment doesn't go through because they actually, obviously that doesn't happen on the mainnet. They'll be fully funded and all that stuff. But for testing purposes, that's one thing to just kind of be aware of. You get to a credit card checkout and it says, can't do it or whatnot. Sometimes that's because Wort itself actually, and we can actually check the balance, their live balance of their piggy bank. But Anyway, so
That's funny because this is DevNet, and that's why.
yeah, so
Okay.
this is fully on chain, man. We just
Oh wow! And
yeah.
that's a page created by your template based on that information. This
Yep,
is live. You can pay
that
for
is
it.
that is live. That is
And
live
then
with the
here,
pay link.
if you click like basically buy,
Yeah,
then
and
that's where Word comes in.
exactly. Yep, and that's just to kind of prove the point or make the point. There it is, live, visible on OpenSea, visible on any other place, Rarible, etc.
OpenSea is one of those NFT marketplaces, one of the first ones.
It is one of the first ones, and I think they served an important function of getting the word out there, going mainstream at least for a period of time. But I think now is a point for Web3 generally to kind of go to the next stage, right? The next phase. I mean, this is more.
Yeah, that like low key stuff where I
Yeah,
don't have to even know I'm on OpenSea. It's a real NFT. I can see it. That's good enough.
exactly. And so what I'm going to do real quick here is actually hop over to a different user, different tab. But no, exactly to your point, Joseph. So one is the whole UX thing, which I'm going to continue to beat the drum on, right? For Web3 to get to the next level, we need to really kind of take a step back and think about our UX in combination with actually how we build these things. Because again, Web3, there's a lot going on under the hood, and if anybody had to deal with all the things going on under the hood to try to build something, there just wouldn't be a lot of building going on, right? It'd be too challenging. But fortunately, we're in a place where, again, I think we're hitting a tipping point where so much of the technical like wizardry, and again, big props to the developers and engineers who made that happen. But so much of that now is like really nicely abstracted, so that the average user can come in and build something, one, like innovative, two, valuable, and three, like without having, coming from a wealthy family.
And
or
three,
something.
get paid
Like,
for it in
yeah,
crypto.
exactly.
Like legit. I think folks don't understand, like, you do not need to really know how to code to make an app that does something. It's not a landing page with a sign up. It's an app that does something, raise a fund, create a marketplace, sell a service, pick up a commission fee, all that with no code in an afternoon, probably less.
And
you can prototype that. Also deploy it live,
the big thing, right, is all of the pieces here, all the pieces of the puzzle that we're looking at, and the reason why I think it was important for us to jump on and start to go through this, like the impetus of this concept with this live stream, is people don't. Firstly, people aren't aware that these building blocks exist, these tools exist. But I firmly believe if more people knew about this, that this was available and that they could leverage these.
It's the nifty way that it interacts with each other. Sure, I have access to exactly the same plugins you just showed.
Yep, exactly.
But it is nifty the way they interact with each other, and that's what the use of this video is about.
I think
as a new user, you need this video to understand how those three blocks work together.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels to it, right? And I mentioned this on our last episode. Whenever you're building something, I kind of think of it as there's like three levels of.
Oh, you made a bid.
What's that?
You made a bid?
Oh, not yet. I'm actually
logging
in. I'm gonna log in with the second user. For this second user, I'm gonna log in actually with the good old fashioned way. Let's go with MetaMask. But what I'm gonna do is actually, once I get in here, we'll see if Wort's piggy bank is filled. If not, we should be able to get through most of the way, even regardless. It just won't. We'll kind of see at the last step. It'll probably let us know. Hey, we're we're broke on the Wort side, but.
We've been testing for weeks and we're all dried up.
Exactly. So I'm logged in with a brand new user here too. This is like you said. There's a pay link. There's a page generated. I click buy now. I have two options. I can pay with crypto. But now we have this checkout with credit cards. So we're going to do that. It's going to be loading. So in the background, what it's doing is talking to Wirt. So we didn't go through the setup process for Wirt. They actually recommend you actually request an ID through their Discord. So you go in there, you go to their support channel, and just say, hey, I'm building a project. And they're pretty quick. They'll get you one. We actually literally just requested one 2 days ago, and they responded in like 2 hours or something like that. So
Okay, that's great.
So there again, another really,
Because that sounds awful. If they don't respond quickly, please do not ask us for this.
Yeah. Okay. And again, live streams as they are. So we're gonna just double check our setup here and try to get this. Let's see. Just double check our ID and. But yeah, we're gonna give this another shot. So right.
And whatever happens on Bubble, you can always verify on chain. Actually,
yes. So I think I know what's going on. We need to go back and go to the admin page. So, this is actually probably a good opportunity to talk about Wirt a little bit more. So, the credit card checkout functionality is initially targeted towards NFT purchases and things like that, which makes a ton of sense. But the real kind of power, and this is, I think, why we're getting the error, we need to fill in two things here. We need to fill in the private key. Oop, that is not a private key. And these are all tests. Oh, actually, that is the private key. Okay. So these are all test values, so it's okay. I'm not doxing.
It doesn't matter if you say it's a test value. Someone's gonna try it. Someone's gonna watch this video, pause it, type every character with their keyboard, and then it won't work. Yeah. But someone's gonna do it. Maybe 50 people will do it. But
that's fair. It's fair. So. So go in with eyes wide open. Assume that, right? So let's give this a shot. But as I was saying, what's happening here is, in some credit card checkout services, they basically they kind of house all of the logic. So they make it like. There's trade-offs, right? They make it really plug and play in terms of like, hey, here's the NFT, here's the payment amount or whatever, and then they basically take that and run with it. And they do all the stuff like behind the scenes and whatnot. Wirt actually has a different implementation, which I actually appreciate, and we'll kind of take a look at that. But here we go. We're actually in the Wirt module. They actually have a full KYC process built into their module, so you don't need to build anything. It's just part of their pop-up, right? But I've done this before with another, mock account, so it'll recognize my phone number. For test purposes, the password doesn't matter, but obviously in live purposes, again, levels of security, it's multi-factor, so it'll shoot text to your email, whatnot. And here we go. There's a credit card checkout. We actually see the NFT we're going to buy, the purveyor, the name, the price, so we can just double check everything. And
that's a compliant KYC.
Exactly.
For a simple purchase.
Yep. And for time purposes, we're not going to go through that here, but if you try it and check it out, it has the basic stuff like address and email and all that stuff, right? So it's fully compliant.
That's a lot more than I would have actually picked up for a simple transaction.
Yeah, and good news is Wirt was not broke, so this transaction went through. And this, I think, when I first saw this, I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. Because one, we've just paid for an NFT on chain with a credit card. Not only that, in literally seconds, 5 seconds, I have this link, which is really critical, shouldn't be overlooked. I can view this transaction on chain and see exactly what happened on chain. This was literally just generated 35 seconds ago. I bought this token, so if I looked at my wallet, I'd have this token in my wallet. And here's the other cool thing. I have royalties and platform fees factored into the transaction, all divvied up for me on chain with all the math and all that stuff done securely, completely transparently. And
oh, cool. Your website just got paid.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. So if I switch back, there you go. This brand new user, we have a balance now. We got $1.20. So
got it.
So
no, I mean, you laugh. This is wild.
Yeah.
Who sets up a financial processor in an hour live on YouTube? This is madness.
And the other nice things about Wirt is they send you an email, confirmation, right? I don't have the webhook set up here because it's a brand new account, but if we did a simple refresh, we'll start to see the ownership update too, because the app actually will look that up and start to update that. But yeah, man, so in about an hour with commentary, we set up a brand new app from scratch. We got all the things like the API keys and all that stuff. We launched a new marketplace contract. We launched deployed an NFT contract. We minted something live for our live stream, and we put it on sale. And we purchased it with a credit card, again, mock credit card, but nonetheless. And all that has happened in the app, but also more importantly on chain. And yeah, man, again, if I were like literally speed running this with like,
I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, it's cool, man. When I go through this stuff, I'm still super like blown away. That's why it's addictive, man. I just love building this stuff because there's just so much at your fingertips these days, and I just want, I hope more people are able to.
I'm definitely gonna rewatch this and follow along, on the template and also in on my app, in Bubble. But there's a lot more to cover. I think there's a lot more to cover. It seems like there's a few more plugins, a lot more functionality, and
totally. And just as a little bit of a teaser maybe, but I also wanted to give a little bit of a heads up in terms of like Wirt specifically and how it does things in the back end. So there's a little bit of setup involved for Wirt, and a little bit of a ramp up just to kind of get it up and running. So again, trade-offs, right? And building products is again, in my prior lives, one of the things I learned, it's always about trade-offs, right? How difficult or how complex it is to build a certain functionality versus what's the bang for the buck, like what do you get out of it. For Wirt, they've made a pretty clear trade-off, which is they've made it a little bit more complex to set up front, but the trade-off is now I can use their credit card checkout not only for NFT purchases, but for pretty much any transaction on chain. So any transaction, any smart contract function that receives a payment to do something, for purchasing, the function there is basically saying, hey, you send me some currency and I will transfer this NFT to you. But that same type of framework, I as a contract, let's say I'm the new smart contract, I receive a payment in currency and then I do something. Once I receive that, I do something. Maybe I split it up. Maybe
you could even notarize a deed.
Notarize a deed, totally, exactly. So so
that's what I'm gonna do.
Totally, right? And so the key thing here is if that function exists on chain and we can see it, we can actually link that up to a credit card payout now or a credit card checkout. So we're not going to get into the weeds of each of these things, but what this basically is doing is saying, hey, we're going to be using the Wirt credit card checkout. Here's a function on chain that I want to use it for. Here are the parameters that I need to send to that function. And basically we've set it up. We've kind of set up the legwork. And so, I wanted to kind of just mention this because it's another one of those critical building blocks. Like we're using it as a certain way to start because that's kind of what they're marketing and what they're focusing on it. But in actuality, what they've built is a generalized, like a broadly usable credit card payment, service that we can use to pay for any, like you said, notarizing a deed or all these other crazy things that, right, people will want to think about and have it be on chain. So anyway, wanted to just make that quick comment. Again, this is open source. You can kind of take a look at it. Anybody can take a look at it.
You kind of have to take a look at it,
Totally. So, trying to keep to the time too. We're shooting for the hour, a little bit over, but I think we're getting better and better each
It's
turn.
okay to create a financial marketplace in an hour. I'll give you 10 more minutes.
Yeah. Appreciate that. So, any case, I know again. Hopefully, this was helpful for you, Joseph, or anybody who ends up watching this. I will put a link to this specific video. This will basically become the tutorial video for the template and for some of the plugins too. So I'll post this and make it accessible. But yeah, again, it can happen. Like you can start from scratch. You can get something up and running with, in my mind, the best user experience available right now for any Web3 app. And from there, you have the building blocks, the modules to really start mixing and matching, recombining, repurposing, taking any of these component parts and the workflows along with them that we've also spent a fair amount of time thinking through, but now, again, they're visible and usable. But repurposing all that stuff for like the next generation of crazy stuff that people are going to dream up. Like Joseph. So anyway, hope that's helpful for everybody, and we'll run this back again. But if there's any questions, any topics, burning topics that people want to go through, then definitely let us know. All right, we may have lost Joseph, but that's okay.
No. I'm just flabbergasted. I'm watching the result.
and I'm sure tired. For those who don't know, Joseph's had a long day, and it's evening for him. We're doing the not even bi-coastal. We're doing the bi-hemisphere live stream, so it's getting pretty late for him.
Well, I fell silent. I was just thinking, man, what is next? Because I have a bunch of things I might want to pitch to you.
Let's do it.
And I can't wait for next week to see you do it again, because this is 2 out of 2.
Yeah.
Real smooth, live build. Yep. If you build in Bubble and you see this and you don't appreciate this, you don't build in Bubble. It's not true.
Totally. Appreciate that. And I'm game, man. That's the name of the game, is to tackle these features. We will hit hiccups. This is becoming kind of like a little bit of a tradition here. We're going to hit something. But part of building is also, troubleshooting, right? It actually goes hand in hand. So
what I think is, once folks figure it out, see these videos, actually you need to try it out. You need to follow along. Mm-hmm. But if you do that once, you will get success. Mm-hmm. There is nothing stopping you from building out a fully fledged financial organization that works on chain with no code.
Absolutely. And again, that's the goal here, right? Like, just continue to bring any and all barriers and pain points down further and further and further. Hopefully it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't even know the right term, but it's like an exponential relationship. It's like car prices, right? You reduce a car price by $1,000. It's not actually like, another 1,000 people that can afford it. It's like 100,000 or 1 million people that can afford it or whatever. So, that's what I think we're trying to do here, is like, for every incremental amount of effort we reduce or we take out of the equation to get your cool idea up and running, hopefully that opens the door for not just 1,000 people, but like 10,000 or 100,000 people to build their ideas.
Or 10 million people. There's so many unbanked people.
Yep.
So many people that are not allowed to bank unfairly and unduly. And without code, just about anyone can help themselves or their community out. I think that's great,
I think that's awesome too. Yeah, man. So that's it. That's it right there. And I actually think that's a perfect way to segue and leave that, just thinking about, looking forward to all things that are possible. But that's the name of the game, right? It's like, for each community, each town, city, family, whatever, you now have an opportunity to build something specific to what you guys need, solve for specific pain points or, issues that you're looking to solve. Being unbanked, one huge one, for instance, and you have the tools and you have the ability to be able to think creatively and build creatively to address those pain points. So Yeah, man. I think maybe that's a wrap, unless you want to have any parting words.
I can't do better than that. I'll see y'all next week,
All
folks.
right, man. All right. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, everybody. And we'll put this link out there. And any questions, feel free to drop by our Discord. We look forward to it. Thanks, everybody. And